Toddler Abducted at Daycare. 18 years later, Mom reads a fashion magazine and sees. Imagine this. A mother drops her toddler off at daycare. Just like any other day, she kisses her goodbye, whispers words of love, and heads to work, never imagining it will be the last time she sees her child for nearly 2 decades. That's exactly what happened to Clara Marine. Her world shattered when her daughter, Ella, was abducted from daycare at just 18 months old. For 18 long years, Clara lived in a fog of grief and unanswered questions, clinging to hope while the rest of her life fell apart. But one ordinary afternoon, as she flipped through the glossy pages of a fashion magazine, something caught her eye. A face that stopped her cold. A young woman with a distinctive birthmark, shaped like a lotus, blossom around her left eye, the same birthmark Ella had. What follows is a story of heartbreak, resilience, and an unrelenting search for truth. Clara's journey began on that fateful day over 18 years ago, when her worst nightmare came true. It wasn't until later that evening, after missing calls from the daycare center, that she realized something was terribly wrong. By the time she arrived, police cars were already parked outside, their flashing lights casting eerie shadows across the playground. Her little girl was gone. Security footage would later reveal a trusted staff member, Maurice Pledger, leading Ella out of the building by the hand. 2 weeks later, Maurice's body was found hanging from a tree in Pisgah National Forest. Authorities ruled it a suicide, but deep down, Clara always suspected there was more to the story. Over the years, leads dried up and the case grew colder, leaving Clara trapped in a cycle of despair and longing. Fast forward to today, and Clara is a librarian in Asheville, North Carolina. At 45, her once light brown hair now carries streaks of silver, but her hands still move with practiced precision as she returns books to their shelves. The library has become her sanctuary, a place where she can escape the weight of her past. Yet even here, reminders are everywhere. One afternoon, a young mother walks in with her toddler, whose curious grin sends Clara spiraling back to memories of Ella. These moments come without warning, piercing through her carefully constructed walls. She forces a smile, helps the mother find the children's section, and tries to push the ache aside. But then, fate intervenes. In the form of a magazine, it starts innocently enough. Clara is sorting through new deliveries in the back room when she comes across a stack of fashion magazines. On the cover of Vogue is a striking young woman with honey gold hair and a familiar violet birthmark around her left eye. Clara's knees buckle. Her breath catches. Could it really be her? The resemblance is uncanny, but it's the birthmark that seals it, the exact shape of a lotus blossom, identical to Ella's. Trembling, Clara flips open the magazine to find a full-page spread featuring the same woman, captioned, Emmy Wells, 20, at Kessler Farm in rural Appalachia. Emmy Wells isn't Ella Marin, but the age matches perfectly. If this is her daughter, she's been living another life entirely, one Clara knows nothing about. The discovery sets off a chain reaction of emotions and actions. Clara contacts Detective Gary Holden, who led the investigation into Ella's disappearance all those years ago. Together, they piece together clues pointing to Kessler Farm, where Emmy supposedly worked as a temporary laborer. But when Clara and the police visit the farm, things don't add up. John and Miriam Kessler claim Emmy doesn't live there permanently. She was merely helping out the day the photos were taken. They mention someone named Rowan, allegedly responsible for sending workers to the farm. Something about their story feels off, too polished, too rehearsed. Meanwhile, Clara's mind races with possibilities. Is Emmy truly her long-lost daughter? And if so, how did she end up at Kessler Farm? Desperate for answers, Clara Ara decides to stay local overnight, checking into a roadside motel near the farm. There, she learns about Miller's Tavern, a popular gathering spot for locals. Hoping to pick up more information, she visits the tavern, where she meets Bran Pledger, the bartender. Their conversation takes a shocking turn when Bran reveals his mother's name, Maurice Pledger, the very woman who abducted Ella. Suddenly, pieces of the puzzle begin falling into place. Bran shares fragments of his own troubled past, including his father's gambling debts and his mother's mysterious death. As Clara Ara listens, she realizes Bran might hold the key to unraveling the mystery surrounding Emmy and Ella. Together, Clara Ara and Bran track down Rowan Pledger, Bran's father, at his secluded farmhouse. The confrontation is tense, fraught with accusations and revelations. Just as tempers flare, a young woman steps out onto the porch, drawn by the commotion. When Clara Ara sees her face illuminated in the moonlight, her heart skips a beat. It's Emmy, or rather Ella. The birthmark leaves no room for doubt, but before Clara Ara can fully process the moment, Rowan intervenes, trying to shield Emmy from the truth. He insists the Kesslers took her in for her own protection, claiming dangerous creditors were after them. Emmy, however, refuses to accept his explanation. She demands answers, calling the police herself to ensure transparency. Law enforcement arrives. The scene grows chaotic. Officers separate everyone for questioning, piecing together the events of the night. Slowly, the truth emerges. The Kesslers purchased Emmy as an infant, raising her as their own while isolating her from the outside world. Rowan admits to cooperating with the same criminal network responsible for Maurice's murder, though he claims he never directly participated in abductions. Despite his cooperation, charges loom large for everyone involved. Meanwhile, Clara waits anxiously at the station, desperate to speak with Emmy. When they finally reunite, the air crackles with emotion. 18 years of separation hang between them, yet there's also a flicker of connection, a tentative bond waiting to be rebuilt. But the road ahead won't be easy. Emmy, still grappling with the revelation that everything she thought she knew about her life is a lie, must navigate her newfound identity. Who is she now? Is she Emmy Wells, the farm girl raised by the Kesslers? Or Ella Marin, the toddler stolen from her mother? And what role does Bran play in all of this? His family's dark history ties him to her pain, yet his genuine remorse offers a glimmer of redemption. As Clara Ara embraces her daughter for the first time in nearly 2 decades, she knows their journey is far from over. Healing won't happen overnight, but they have time now, time to rediscover each other, piece by fragile piece. And yet, questions remain. How much did the Kesslers truly know about Emmy's origins? Was Rowan telling the whole truth about his involvement in the trafficking network? Most importantly, can Emmy ever forgive the people who stole her life, even if they claim to do it out of love? As the camera fades out, we're left wondering, will justice prevail, or will the scars of the past continue to haunt them? Stay tuned for the next chapter of this incredible story, where truths are revealed, bonds are tested, and hope fights its way back from the brink of despair. As Clara and Emmy sat together in the waiting area of the police station, the weight of 18 years apart pressed heavily on them. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable, but it was thick with unspoken questions and emotions. Clara Ara wanted to ask everything at once: what Emmy liked, how she had grown up, what dreams she carried. But she held back, knowing this moment needed patience. For Emmy, the whirlwind of revelations left her reeling. every memory she had of the Kesslers, every story they told her about her childhood, now felt like threads unraveling before her eyes. She glanced down at the violet birthmark on her wrist, tracing its edges absent-mindedly. It had always been a part of her, something unique that set her apart. But now it carried a meaning far deeper than she ever imagined. The detective returned, his expression serious yet kind. He explained the next steps: formal charges against the Kesslers, ongoing investigations into Rowan's connections, and efforts to dismantle the larger trafficking network he was tied to. As he spoke, Clara Ara noticed Emmy's jaw tighten. Her daughter wasn't just processing the truth. She was piecing together the lies she'd lived with her entire life. Why would they do this? Emmy asked suddenly, her voice trembling. Why take me if they knew I belonged to someone else? Clara Ara hesitated, unsure how to answer without sounding bitter. Finally, she said softly, they wanted a family so badly that they convinced themselves it didn't matter where you came from, as long as they had you. Emmy looked away, her face unreadable. Later, as they walked out of the station, the cool night air hit them like a wave. Brand stood nearby, leaning against his truck, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. His presence felt both awkward and necessary. Clara Ara introduced him properly to Emmy, explaining their connection through Morris and Rowan. Bran apologized again, his voice heavy with guilt. I can't undo what my family did, he said, but I want to help make things right. For both of you. Emmy studied him for a moment, then nodded. You didn't choose any of this, she said simply. Neither did I. Back at the motel, Clara Ara ordered an adjacent room for Emmy, insisting she deserved privacy after such a chaotic night. But when Emmy hesitated outside her door, Clara Ara gently asked, Do you want to talk more? Or maybe look at some pictures? She pulled out a worn photo album from her bag, one she'd kept close all these years. Inside were snapshots of Ella as a toddler, smiling in the bathtub, clutching a stuffed bear, sitting on Clara Ara's lap under a tree. Emmy flipped through the pages slowly, her fingers lingering on each image. This is who I was, she whispered. But I don't remember any of it. Clara Ara reached out, placing a hand over hers. You're still you, she said firmly, and we'll figure out who that is. Together. Meanwhile, across town, Rowan Pledger sat in an interrogation room, his face pale and drawn. Officers grilled him about the trafficking ring, pressing him for names, dates, and locations. Rowan knew cooperation might save him from the harshest penalties, but revealing details meant betraying people who could easily retaliate. Still, fear of imprisonment outweighed loyalty to criminals. Slowly, reluctantly, he began recounting everything, from Maurice's initial involvement to the shadowy figures who controlled the operation. Each confession felt like pulling teeth, but the officers listened intently, scribbling notes and cross-referencing information. By morning, they had enough leads to launch raids on several properties linked to the network. Rowan's betrayal would shake the foundation of the organization, but it also put a target on his back. At the Kessler farm, law enforcement teams arrived before dawn, searching every inch of the property. John and Miriam Kessler, already in custody, watched helplessly as officers combed through their home, barns, and outbuildings. Hidden documents, falsified records, and encrypted devices were seized, offering glimpses into the lengths the couple had gone to protect their secret. In one locked drawer, investigators found a crumpled receipt dated nearly 2 decades ago, a payment confirmation for $50,000. The note scrawled beneath it read, "For our little miracle." It was damning evidence, proof that the Kesslers hadn't merely stumbled upon a child in need. They had purchased her outright. As the investigation unfolded, Clara and Emmy spent hours talking, laughing, and sometimes crying. Clara shared stories of David, describing him as a man of quiet strength who adored Ella deeply. "He used to call you his lotus flower," she recalled, smiling despite the ache in her chest. "He said your birthmark reminded him of resilience, of beauty growing even in difficult places." Emmy absorbed these words silently, her mind racing with questions about the father she couldn't remember. Would meeting him feel like reconnecting with a stranger or finding another piece of herself? Bran visited them often during those days, bringing coffee and updates from his father's case. Though his role in the story remained peripheral, his determination to support Emmy and Clara grew stronger. One afternoon, he brought along a box of old photographs he'd found while cleaning out his attic. Among them was a faded Polaroid of Morris holding a toddler with a familiar violet mark around her eye. Clara gasped, tears streaming down her face as she recognized Ella. Emmy stared at the picture, her breath catching. "That's me," she murmured. "But why does she look so sad?" Bran hesitated, then admitted, "My dad says Mom struggled with guilt after taking you." Maybe she realized too late what she'd done. Tensions peaked when authorities announced plans to raid multiple locations tied to the trafficking network. Clara feared for Emmy's safety, urging her to stay hidden until the operation concluded. But Emmy refused, insisting she wanted to witness justice being served. "These people stole my life," she said fiercely. "I deserve to see them pay." Reluctantly, Clara agreed, accompanying her to the courthouse, where preliminary hearings took place. The courtroom buzzed with reporters and curious onlookers, but Emmy remained focused, her gaze fixed on the defendants seated ahead. When John and Miriam Kessler entered, handcuffed and visibly shaken, Emmy felt a surge of conflicting emotions: anger, sorrow, pity. They weren't monsters, just broken people who had made monstrous choices. As the trial progressed, pieces of the puzzle fell into place. Testimonies revealed that Morris had initially acted out of desperation, hoping to settle Rowan's debts. But when the creditors demanded more, she panicked, fleeing with Ella instead of handing her over directly. Her death, initially ruled a suicide, was now believed to be murder, orchestrated by the same criminals who threatened her. Rowan, racked with grief and fear, cooperated fully to protect himself and his son, though his actions couldn't erase the damage done. His testimony provided critical breakthroughs in dismantling the trafficking ring. With each revelation, Clara and Emmy grew closer, navigating the complexities of their newfound relationship. Yet uncertainty lingered. Could Emmy truly forgive the Kesslers for raising her under false pretenses? Would she embrace her biological parents or forge an entirely new identity? And what role would Bran play moving forward, caught between loyalty to his father and redemption for his family's sins? As the final hearing approached, the tension reached a breaking point, leaving everyone bracing for the verdict that would shape their futures forever. The next morning, the sun rose over Asheville, casting golden light through the motel curtains, where Clara and Emmy sat together. They had spent hours talking late into the night about Ella's childhood, David's quiet strength, and the dreams Clara once held for her daughter. For the first time in 18 years, Clara felt a fragile sense of peace. But as they prepared to head back to the police station, reality settled heavily between them. The Kesslers' betrayal, Rowan's involvement, and the shadowy network that had stolen Emmy's life loomed large. "I don't know what I'm supposed to feel," Emmy admitted, clutching a steaming mug of coffee. Angry, grateful, lost, Clara Ara reached across the table, placing a hand over hers. You're allowed to feel all of it and none of it. There's no right way. At the station, Detective Holden greeted them with an update. Overnight, raids on properties linked to the trafficking ring had uncovered damning evidence. Ledgers detailing illegal transactions, forged documents, and even recordings implicating high-profile individuals. Rowan's cooperation proved invaluable, leading officers to safe houses and hidden accounts. This operation goes deeper than we imagined, Holden explained. But thanks to your bravery, Emmy, we've dismantled one of its strongest branches. Emmy nodded, though her mind was elsewhere. She couldn't stop thinking about the people who raised her. Not just the Kesslers, but the criminals who orchestrated her abduction. Were they monsters, or simply broken people making desperate choices? As the day unfolded, Emmy met with psychologists and social workers, assigned to help her process everything. They encouraged her to take things slowly, reminding her that rebuilding identity wasn't something that happened overnight. Meanwhile, Clara Ara worked closely with investigators to piece together the final gaps in the case. Through Rowan's testimony, they learned that Maurice hadn't acted alone. She'd been coerced by creditors tied to the trafficking network. Her death, a staged suicide, was meant to silence her permanently. The revelation hit Bran hard. I spent my whole life believing one version of my mom, he confessed to Clara Ara during a quiet moment. Now I have to rewrite everything I thought I knew. By late afternoon, the team reconvened in the waiting area. Bran joined them. Briefly, his presence still awkward, yet somehow comforting. He apologized again to Emmy, this time with tears in his eyes. You didn't deserve any of this, he said. Neither did Clara Ara. If there's anything I can do to make amends. Emmy cut him off gently. You're here now. That means something. It was a small moment, but it carried weight. A flicker of forgiveness amidst so much pain. The climax came unexpectedly when John and Miriam Kessler were brought into the room under guard. Their faces were pale, their expressions haunted. Miriam locked eyes with Emmy, her voice trembling as she spoke. We never wanted to hurt you, she whispered. We only wanted a family. Emmy stared at her, conflicted. Part of her wanted to scream, to demand answers for the lies they'd built around her. But another part understood their desperation, their flawed humanity. You should have told me the truth, Emmy said finally, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. Instead, you chose fear over honesty, and because of that, I lost 18 years of my life. John stepped forward, his hands cuffed in front of him. We made mistakes, he admitted. Terrible ones. But please believe us. We loved you. We tried to give you the best life we could. Emmy turned away, unable to look at them any longer. Clara Ara placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, letting her know she wasn't alone. When the guards escorted the Kesslers out, Emmy exhaled sharply, as if releasing a weight she'd carried unknowingly for years. Back at the motel later that evening, Clara Ara and Emmy sat side by side on the edge of the bed, watching the sunset. Paint the sky in hues of orange and pink. What happens now? Emmy asked quietly. Clara Ara smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face. Whatever you want. You're free to choose your own path, to rediscover yourself, to reconnect with your roots, or to create something entirely new. Emmy leaned into her touch, feeling the warmth of a bond that had endured unimaginable trials. I think I'd like to meet Dad, she said after a pause. David, I want to hear his stories, see if I recognize myself in him. Over the following weeks, Emmy began piecing her life back together. She reached out to David, who tearfully welcomed her into his home in Colorado. Together, they explored shared interests and discovered echoes of each other in their laughter and mannerisms. Clara Ara stayed close, visiting often and cherishing every moment with her daughter. Bran kept in touch too, determined to rebuild trust and honor his family's role in righting past wrongs. Though scars remained, healing became possible. One conversation, one memory, one embrace at a time. In the end, the story wasn't just about loss or redemption. It was about resilience, the unyielding hope that drove Clara Ara to search for her daughter for nearly 2 decades. It was about Emmy finding strength in her truth, even when that truth was painful. And it was about the power of connection, binding hearts across time and distance. As Clara Ara watched Emmy laugh with David during a video call, she realized something profound. While the past couldn't be erased, it also didn't define them. What mattered most was the future they chose to build together, a future filled with love, understanding, and endless possibilities.